One scientist ran a single experiment on one man in a locked laboratory. Within 6 months, that same experiment had spread across an entire country, turning millions of ordinary people into something no longer human. This is the story of how one mistake nearly ended America, and the one discovery that brought it back. Dr. Elena Voss had spent 15 years researching a rare neurological condition, hoping to reverse brain damage in patients considered beyond saving. Her research was brilliant, but reckless, built on a compound she wasn't fully authorized to test on a living person yet. Her first test subject was a terminally ill patient named Robert, who volunteered, believing he had nothing left to lose. The compound worked instantly, reactivating dead brain tissue in a way nobody thought was possible. But it didn't stop there. Instead of simply healing him, the compound kept rewriting his brain function, stripping away memory, emotion, and reasoning, leaving behind only raw, aggressive instinct. Robert didn't wake up healed. He woke up as something else entirely. Elena tried to contain what had happened, but Robert broke free from the facility within hours, and worse, whatever was happening to his brain was somehow transmissible through direct contact, spreading the same effect to anyone he came into contact with. Within the first 48 hours, the local hospital where he was first taken had over 30 infected patients. Within a week, entire city blocks were affected. Government officials, initially assuming it was an isolated containment breach, drastically underestimated how fast it was actually spreading. By the end of the first month, infected zones had been reported in 12 different states, overwhelming emergency services faster than any evacuation plan had been designed to handle. As the outbreak spread, cities began enforcing strict lockdowns, but panic moved faster than policy. Highways clogged with families trying to flee infected zones, while military checkpoints struggled to separate the infected from the uninfected in real time. The infected weren't mindless in the way most people expected. They retained basic motor function and aggression, but lost nearly all capacity for complex thought, cooperation, or self-preservation, making them dangerously unpredictable in large numbers. Entire sections of major cities were eventually sealed off completely, guarded by military forces under strict orders, while research labs across the country raced against time, using samples secretly obtained from the very first outbreak site. While Elena's original lab remained under investigation, a separate research team led by Dr. Malik Chen, working independently at a research hospital several states away, began studying blood samples taken from early infected patients. Chen noticed something the initial reports had missed. The infection wasn't destroying brain cells permanently. It was suppressing them, essentially placing the affected regions into a kind of extreme, prolonged dormancy rather than actually killing them. If the cells were merely suppressed rather than destroyed, that meant, in theory, they could potentially be reactivated, if the right compound could reverse whatever chemical signal was keeping them locked down. It took Chen's team 4 grueling months of failed trials, dead ends, and mounting public pressure before they found a stabilizing compound that showed the first real signs of reversing the effect in early lab tests. The first human trial of Chen's reversal treatment was performed on a small, carefully monitored group of infected patients in a secured facility. Under intense observation, the injection was administered, and for the first several hours, nothing visibly changed. Then, gradually, one patient's aggressive movements slowed. Her eyes, which had shown no recognition for weeks, began tracking movement with actual awareness again. Within 24 hours, she was speaking her first coherent words since her infection, disoriented, frightened, but unmistakably herself again. The treatment worked. Word spread through government channels almost immediately, triggering the largest coordinated medical rollout in the country's history. Over the following months, mobile treatment units were deployed to every previously infected zone across the country, administering the reversal injection to millions of affected people in one of the most massive public health operations ever conducted. Recovery wasn't instant or perfect. Many survivors faced months of disorientation, memory gaps, and psychological recovery from time they could barely remember living through. But the country that had nearly collapsed into total chaos slowly, carefully, began rebuilding itself, family by family, city by city. Dr. Elena Voss, whose original experiment had caused the outbreak, spent the rest of her career working directly under strict oversight, contributing what she'd learned to help refine Chen's treatment further, quietly trying to help repair the damage her ambition had once unleashed. Years later, historians would refer to it simply as the 6 months, a period defined by exactly how quickly one uncontrolled decision had nearly unraveled an entire nation, and exactly how much coordinated effort it took to pull it back from the edge. Dr. Chen, when asked what he'd learned from it all, gave a simple answer. "The mistake wasn't curiosity," he said. "Curiosity is how we ended up saving everyone, in the end. The mistake was moving forward before we were ready to be responsible for what we might find." Maybe that's the real lesson buried inside a story like this one. The line between a breakthrough and a disaster is rarely about how brilliant an idea is. It's about whether the people chasing it were patient enough to respect exactly how much they didn't yet understand.